This is me trying to work out how to share.
Oh God. Technology!
Boop, boop, boop. Hi everyone, I'm Edward from Nonsuch Studios and I'm here today in a very quiet and empty Nonsuch. Like every other venue across the city, we've had to shut our doors for the duration of the coronavirus lockdown period, but we've snuck ourselves in today to film a very special video as part of the NottStopping festival. Today we're going behind the verse with two of Nottingham's freshest poets. Shortly we'll be joined by Norris, an established actor, poet, theatre maker. But first we're joined by Nottingham's first ever young poet laureate. She's written poems that have been broadcast across the city for many years now, and she's very much on the climb throughout the poetry industry. It's Georgina Whelbourne, and hopefully very shortly through the powers of Zoom she will be logging in and talking to us. Hello.
Oh, hey.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Welcome to a very empty Nonsuch Studios. Oh, how are you? Where are you?
I'm okay. I'm isolating. I've got my family with me, so I'm pretty lucky in that department. But yeah, staying sane just about.
Yeah, slowly getting it. I think we're all on that kind of like nice edge between doing okay, having good days, having bad days, and then just feeling like the entire world collapse around you as well on other days.
Yeah.
But we're somehow still standing up straight. We're all smiling a little bit most of the time. We're trying.
Yeah, ups and downs. Every day I'm tired. That's the consistent thing, I think.
I'm finding myself incredibly tired from doing not that much. I find it's very weird and kind of like the time scales as well, isn't it? Kind of, I feel like the start of isolation was like seconds ago, but at the same time, days take a very long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? But I guess it's the first time for everything, and this is the first time for us all to sort of experience an international pandemic. So swings around.
I know. Well, it's meant that all of those emails that were, saying, please can we have a meeting about this? Please can we have a meeting about that? Now those emails that could have just been a phone call are now a phone call. So at least we're not running around mental like we were before.
Are you finding all the sort of digital meetings and Zooms and Google Hangouts and all of those sorts of things?
Oh, I hate it, but I'm a technophobe. So for my corporate job, we use Microsoft Teams now, as seemingly everybody is doing, and it's something else.
Hate Teams. Microsoft Teams is the worst thing on the planet. But what are you doing aside from work? How are you filling your time?
Baking. Obsessing over like redoing my room over and over again. I dabbled in a little bit of trying to learn ukulele, which I keep stopping and starting for driving my family crazy. A bit of painting. I'm just trying to join in this kind of creative mood that everyone's in, but I'm not touching poetry as much as I thought I would be. I think because that's so much usual work and life for me, I'm trying to occupy my mind with dabbling in stuff that I wouldn't normally do.
I ashamedly have to put my hand up and say I am one of the people who is tending to a sourdough. Me and my sourdough are one. We've had a few ups and downs to the point now where can you remember when you were at school and you used to be given a bag of flour to look after?
Yes.
To make you not want children when you're a teenager. I feel like they should have teenage sourdough to look after because it's stressful. But the bread is top notch. Second to none.
You've got more patience than me, honestly. I can't even be bothered with a cheesecake.
But let's talk about poetry for a little bit because we're here to discuss some of the works that you've done. I can't even remember when we started working with you. It feels like we've done lots of different mini projects over the last couple of years. I guess here today we're here to talk about a poem that we commissioned you to write at Nonsuch for a project that we run out in Boott, which is called Wonderwoods. And Wonderwoods is an outdoor arts project which unfortunately is on hold at the moment because kind of like most of our activities, it's all about sort of bringing people together in spaces. And as we can't do that for now, kind of Wonderwoods has been set on hold, but we will be kind of bringing that back next year. But kind of, if we go back nearly a year ago, you wrote us a poem all about nature and exploring the woodland. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it before we watch it?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like any theme that's to do with nature, woodland and outdoors is always something that resonates with me, because I love the way that as a city dweller, that the outdoors and nature is still this very like magical, very separate environment to everyday life. So it's something to go to, it's something to experience, it's not the everyday. And so getting the chance to write this poem and go and be in a space that was full of, you know, massive trees and little bridges, like handmade bridges everywhere, and little lakes and stuff, it was really a pleasure to kind of take in all that magic and then turn it into something for people who also maybe don't even know that space was there. And you know, even though Boott is kind of towny, isn't it? It's very beautiful greenery that you can go and escape to that you maybe don't know about.
But the Toy Library, who manage the woodland and are a partner on the project with us, kind of have turned it into this really incredible space. And over kind of the Wonderwoods project, we've put sort of light installations in there. We're working with sculptors, to put some really amazing art which shows kind of what's beneath the ground of Boott. And also like special installations as well. So I think kind of what we kind of were working with you is kind of that sort of sense of using poetry to kind of open up the possibilities of the space that kind of quite a lot of people don't know is there, and also see what could be possible. And I think that really comes through the poem. And I guess even though it was only last year, a whole load of things has changed, hasn't there? And I think, you know, we can look back at things like the projects that we've done in the past to really inspire what we want to do in the future and kind of bring us back to where we want to go. And I guess before we watch the poem and the video that we made, it'd be interesting just to see what you remember about it and kind of any inspiration that you've taken from writing that poem into your work or the project.
Yeah, definitely. I remember one of the main focuses being that the people at the Toy Library really wanted it to be a poem that celebrated the kind of uplifting magic, again, I guess, that woodland and outdoor spaces like that has. And so I remember writing it feeling like to remember to look up and not always be, you know, head down on your phone or tripping over your feet. Or it was really about taking in where you are and taking in the moment, and being a poet as well, it's kind of your job to dig around and look for those tiny little details that other people might not see and then blow them up. So getting the chance to do that in this poem has actually helped the way that I look at other briefs, even if they're not necessarily about nature. I'll try to paint nature in that same way of taking a tiny detail like a bug or a particular leaf and blowing it up to hinge the whole poem off.
Shall we watch?
Yes, let's do it.
Shield bugs guard the opening of Barker's wood. Square-shouldered and rust as a 1p piece, they let in anything but the city. Passing through, the outward breath of trees blows the day's silt from me, and there, on the path, I am a dandelion. I ache to be made of this rich earth, to bear shoots of grass or mourn the hollow of a den dug into me only to feel it full again with fur and warmth. The smell of smoke and coal from the fire pit reminds me we're the only mammals to eat food hot, and how marshmallow dust on a finger is a lot like mildew on a leaf. By the pond, mist lifts without ambition, joins the endless upward reach of woodland, and it's in this movement I hear the language of the place telling me, lift, reach, up.
How did that feel watching that back?
So it feels like another life already, only a year ago, and it just, it feels so different. But I'm really glad that that I was right about the mood that it conveyed. I definitely felt that again watching it back, about coming away from that city life and feeling the silt, the dust of the day, you know, blow away from you, and taking a minute to just capture being in nature and being the animals that we are, really.
Sort of the everyday, from kind of urban environment to natural environment, or kind of the changing seasons and how things change over time. How do you go about writing poems like this? What can you give us a bit of an insight into sort of the process that you went through when you're given a brief, through to kind of having it published online?
Briefs are hard. Briefs are really hard. Writing to brief is always a challenge, especially when it's a creative brief. But I think that the best thing to do is always to try and have a conversation with the person giving you the brief. So yeah, of course they'll give you the nuts and bolts of it on the page, you know, they'll say it needs to be this long, it needs to touch on this and this, but hearing the person talk about the project and what they really want the poem to do is really useful, because having that in the back of your mind can help you when you make decisions about, okay, well, what word do I use here? If this poem is supposed to be a celebratory poem about green spaces, can I swap it for a word that brings more joy to the forefront of somebody's mind? So always having that purpose in the back of your mind really helps. And then I think if you can get in the space, or if you can read other work that's about a similar thing or set in a similar space, you start to digest it a little bit and get yourself in that zone. And then usually a line or an image or a particular mood will sprout up, and you just got to pull that sprout all the way out until you get right down to the roots and write it all and see where the poem takes you. Never normally takes you where you think it's going to, but that's another story.
So in that mind, are you someone who has been enjoying your green spaces in lockdown?
Yeah, I love green spaces anyway. I love plants, I love garden centres, anything that gets me out in the wilderness. Yeah, definitely. The closest parks to me are Arnold Park, or Arnott Park as the proper people call it, or even Forest Recreation Ground. That's been a home for me for a very long time, and if you go right up near the back, it gets much more wild than it is on the lawn at the front. So yeah, green spaces kind of keep me sane, I think.
We sort of look forward to the future, and I guess there will be some form of kind of new normal that will emerge in the coming months and weeks. And I guess, is there anything from this sort of experience of being isolated or in lockdown that you'd like to see continue in your new normal life?
Yeah, you know what, I feel like all of the people I've been dealing with in a professional kind of arena have been so much more understanding and so much more cautious of each other, although of course, like most of us, I'm still working to deadlines with things. People seem to be much more they're checking in a lot more and saying, is this okay? Is this turnaround okay for you? You know, do you have the capacity to do this? And it just feels like a much more considerate time for our mental health when it comes to dealing with our work and our deadlines and pressures, which is frustrating because it's then counteracted with the fact that we are stuck at home. We can't necessarily see our loved ones, and everyone's going a bit stir crazy because it's all work and no play. But I think really that's the thing I would like to see going forward, is just the fact that we're all aware everyone's going through something, whereas normally it's easy to forget.
Yeah, I think this experience has brought to light a lot of experiences that people don't necessarily acknowledge on a day-to-day basis, and I think it's given us all a bit of a wake-up call to be a little bit more caring, a little bit more mindful of other people as well as ourselves. I think we can all get a bit lost in our own self-care and whatnot, but actually we can all do with looking after each other a little bit more.
Yes, 100%. Cheers to that.
I don't have a cold.
I just have water, there's no alcohol around, god damn it.
So thank you so much for coming to talk to us, Georgina. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm sure everyone who's watching wishes you well and kind of looks forward to seeing more of your poetry kind of emerge out of this lockdown period. So yeah, thank you very much, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you for having me. Speak to you soon.
Bye. Behind the verse today, we're not just giving you insight into one poet's practice, but two. And as promised earlier, we are now going to be joined by Ben Norris, who's not only an amazing poet and theatre maker, but he's also now a famous actor in BBC Four's The Archers. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
Surviving.
Yes, yeah, very much.
How are you finding everything?
How long have you got? I mean, like, it's weird, isn't it? It's hard. But I think the weather is helping, nice as it's been. And I'm really lucky in that we've got a garden here where I live. And so I don't feel as caged in as I imagine loads of other people feel. But it is still, there's only so many things you can do to make each day different and fresh. And so, yeah, I've definitely had my moments of feeling a bit flat and low. But I'm feeling all right because the sun's out and it's nice. Yeah,
definitely. And are you managing to stay creative, keep yourself busy?
Yeah, to an extent. I've tried to do that thing where, like, I can't remember who said it to me, but really early on, someone said, this is not a residency, it's a quarantine. And so I shouldn't put pressure on myself to kind of make all the things that I've thought about making in the last 5 years or finish all the things. So I've been trying to work my way through redrafting a play, and I've written a couple of new things, little things like poetry commissions here and there and that sort of thing. But I've not done that thing where it's like, if I don't come out of this lockdown with a 6-pack and a novel manuscript, then I'm a failure and an awful person. And so I'm just trying to, like, do bits and bobs when I feel like it, but not beat myself up either.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of that thing where when you are kind of working as a creative, kind of your creativity is both your work and your hobby. So I think I've tried to find that balance between using creative things to kind of keep myself occupied, but not kind of stressing myself out too much with it. It's been kind of like there's been something quite childlike about it in a nice way, in that, I don't know, when like you come home from school, and unless you're like going to like play out with your mates, as we used to say, I've got a piano here which is so lovely and I haven't touched it for years. So like just being able to sit down and have a little twinkle on that, you know, just do things kind of a bit more whimsically. I'd forgotten the how creative like idleness is, and like you said, doing things as and when you feel like it, because it nourishes you, not just out of a sense of professional obligation or whatever. It's been quite nice to rediscover a bit of that whimsy. We are going to reflect on a little bit of our creative past together, because I don't know if you can remember, but a couple of years ago, yourself and the team here at Nonsuch, we made a poetry video as part of Nottingham's bid to be European Capital of Culture, which seems like something that was years and years ago. 2017, I think it was October, maybe. Yeah, we put you in the back of my car, we drove you to Woollerton Park, we made you film a poem in a day, but it did quite well, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It was quite surprising. That's never really happened to me before. And I was proud of it and I was excited by it, and I thought it was quite fun and it had like a sense of play to it. But like you said, we did it really quickly, and Courtney is amazing, the person who filmed it, and we only had her for a day and me for a day in the same place. So we did 3 different locations, I want to say. We were in the square, we went to the castle, we went to Woollerton Park. Maybe I'm forgetting more, but I think that was it. And yeah, we were bombing around, and I was desperately trying to remember the lines. We were battling with kind of wind and other noises and all that sort of business. So it seemed to really speak to people, and it like you said, it did all right.
Do you want to give a bit of background to the poem? I guess sort of, we gave you quite a broad brief, I think, which was kind of, we want you to write a poem that we're going to record, and it's going to be about Nottingham.
I think, yeah, exactly that. Write a poem about Nottingham. But I knew it was for the 2023 bid, and so I knew it needed to be celebratory, you know, like joyous. And I tend to write about quite tricky stuff or like personal stuff. And it had been a while since I'd written something that looked outward that much, and it was really nice to be unapologetically joyous. I have a little, like, I don't want to say it's a guilty pleasure, because I shouldn't feel guilty about it, but I watch a lot of battle rap, and I really like lots of the kind of linguistic fun that they have and the wordplay and some of the sillier stuff that they do, like deliberately bad bars or compliments battles and things like that. And it was a coping mechanism at uni when I was doing like a particularly tricky exam about like Beowulf or some Middle English, that I would watch loads of battle rap in the morning because it was like a palate cleanser. And so I just let myself be silly with it and put loads of puns in it, and also have moments of a bit more earnestness and just love for this city that I've been getting to know differently over the last few years, I think. Because when you live in a place, I didn't realise loads of the stuff about Nottingham's past, its connection with loads of social justice movements and stuff like that. And it wasn't until I moved away and went to uni and then came back and started having some different conversations. And yeah, lots to do with the 2023 bid, actually, you know, breaking the frame and the Luddites and all the ways, and the city of literature status that we've got, and like the rebel writers. I was learning all this stuff for the first time too, really, and I found it really exciting. And so I tried to cram it all into the poem in a way that could have completely ruined it and made it this like bloated, wayward thing. But I think we just about got away with it.
That sort of mix of sort of playfulness and, you know, true Notts history, all the bits that we all talk about kind of anecdotally on an irregular basis, all together in one place, kind of in locations that people knew, is kind of what spoke to people. And I think sort of from our perspective, when we put it online, we thought it was kind of going to be, it would have been seen by maybe a couple of thousand people. But then we put it out there, and overnight, I think we hit 24 different nations across the world and something like 110,000 views, which when we arrived in the office the next day, we were like, whoa, something. Yeah. And I think now we still get people commenting on it and kind of sharing it still. And it's 3 and a bit years, or nearly 3 years later. It's still speaking to people. So I think that sort of, it speaks a lot about sort of that universal Notts experience that I think is that sort of slightly underdog, slightly fresh, slightly rough around the edges, but kind of knows where it's going and isn't too proud about it. And I think that's what people really identify with.
Yeah, I loved seeing people commenting like, oh, I live in New Zealand now, but I'm from Notts, and this really reminded me of X or Y part of my childhood or whatever. It was so lovely and a massive surprise.
Well, without further ado, shall we watch it?
Go on then. Yeah.
In Notts, no one knows what to call you. Are you northern? They have it that the Midlands is a no man's, a blank canvas. Gruff to a home county's English rose, but posh to a proper northerner. Coal smudge or limestone stain down the Pennine Way, they say. We can't win. Trapped in the void between Watford Gap and Hadrian's Wall in Notts. They want to know who we belong to, what we are in Notts. Our standards are royal, but we're not hopelessly loyal. We don't pander, we fight and we foil. Till the waters are roiled, we are forever embroiled. We got good at our toil and we've got something to show for it. We are hardy folk. We've got blood in our soil and big things grow from it. Major Oak, home of Robin Hood. Major Bloke, the original disruptor. Major Woke. I live with my band of merry men in the forest, Sherwood. And do you fancy some social justice with your breakfast, sir? Sure would. Robin Hood famously stole from the rich to give to the poor. Is it an accident that HMRC now has its headquarters in Nottingham? Probably. We take the status quo and throw a massive stone at it. If there's something we don't like, we don't sit and moan a bit. We overthrow a bit with optional horse, bow and arrow, tights and cloak and shit. We'll make the most of it. We are revolting. Nottingham used to be called Snottingham. It was likely owned by a Saxon family led by some dude called Snot the Wise. Ham means home and ing is the possessive, the people of, so Snottingham was the home of Snot's people. But the Normans modified the name and removed the S. Bit crude, wasn't it? Bit funny. They wanted to be taken seriously, come on. We are revolting in Notts. When the hours went down and the pickings got slim, we bore Luddites. Hold tight, know your worth, and win. There are things that you don't lie down for. Things that you just don't take on the chin. And we've seen a whole lot more of that bullshit since. We ask the necessary questions in Notts. So let's maybe throw a spanner in the works a bit, and maybe it will hurt a bit, but you don't get pearls when you don't have grit, and we've got shovels of it. But not so many oysters. Nottingham is actually the furthest inland city in the entire UK. We are miles from the sea. But it doesn't matter. We bring the beach to us every summer. Literally. We are a place to arrive at. And if you need a sanctuary, come in and sit. Rest a sec. We've got you. Or come here and live. We've got you. We've got bras, not bombs, and the city's got lungs. Come and breathe a bit. Heal a bit. We've got you. We are a rock city, a frock city, an accent you can't easily mock city. It isn't Yorkshire. Do you have a huge goose in the middle of a roundabout? Probably not, City. We are Notts City. We've got a pub that's built into a wall city, which is probably itself older than your city. But we're not all city. We don't have grass in the sky, but we've got field upon field of it. Forest and Dumble and river and bliss. We've got parks spilling out of us. Parks you could trip into from town. Lakes and halls with deer the colour of stout. We've got Newstead and Byron, a poet so boss that one of England's finest verses is just something he wrote for his dog. What? We make the best of what we've got, which is a hell of a lot in Notts. Not northern, definitely not southern. No offence. But slap bang in the middle, bullseye, front and centre. Just you try and pin us down. Just you try and drown us out. England's restless rebel heart, beating hard.
So there we have it.
There it was.
What was it like to watch it?
It's cool. It's kind of nostalgic. It's my hair was shorter, thankfully. This is getting pretty locked down bush. No, it's nice. It was nice. It just reminded me of that crazy day and how kind of thinking on our feet me and Courtney had to be. I also really enjoyed when I walked past that random guy and he goes, "Hurry, knock," like not choreographed, but very helpful tonally, and just like little things like that. People. Also, those tights are quite a thin or low denier. I forget what the rating is, but yeah, there's not a great deal left for the imagination in some parts. So sorry about that.
And do you still have the costume?
I think I actually might do for in case of a fancy dress moment.
Looking back then, that was kind of a poem that we made, and the video that we made in a very particular space and time. And I guess 3 years is quite a long time for a city, and it's kind of, if you were to revisit the poem or look back at it now, do you think that's the same Nottingham that we have today, or has things changed? What's happened since 2017?
Changing gear a little bit, and I felt that continue. I suppose if I did the poem again, I wanted to reference Nottingham's rich history of immigration and having lots of different cultures here, living very close by, in this amazing multicultural city from all over the world. And so I think I would probably reference that a bit more explicitly. In fact, I've rewritten a verse of it that if I ever perform it live, which very occasionally happens, that I include that verse now, which makes a little bit more direct reference to that. But yeah, I'd say it's chippiness, like you said. It's the fact that it's not London, but also it's not Manchester, and it's not like a twat about it. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. Sorry if I'm not, but there it is. And I love Manchester, but it has a sort of London 2 feel about it sometimes, and Nottingham doesn't. It's uniquely its own place, and I think part of its charm is its slight unpindownableness, which is that whole thing about the Midlands being not either the north or the south, and no one really being able to do an impression of us. And I think that's pretty timeless.
The standard has been raised, I think, and I think we've all stepped up our game, and that's something that I'm really excited to see sort of happen in the future as we continue to sort of do projects like this, hopefully when we can all be together again. And I feel like that is the perfect point to sort of end our chat. But before you go away, I have one final question, and it's what can we expect from you in the near future?
Well, in the more immediate future, I've done another piece as part of NottStopping with the Playhouse, and so I have done a piece about Woollerton Park, which I miss dearly. And has been a big part of my life ever since I was a kid. My gran lived really nearby, so I've kind of grown up in that park in a way. And so I've done this little audio poem tour through the park that people could go on, that I hope will be a nice way to explore somewhere that you can't get to, and quite calming as well. It's quite I just tried to write something for where my energy's at the moment, and just this little peaceful pocket that you can just slip into for a little bit, for a little snuggle, and then get out again. So yeah, that's going up on the Playhouse website, I believe, on Saturday afternoon.
dream it. And I live quite close to Woodson Park, so I will be doing that myself. I can guarantee. I will be
Sweet.
a nice walk and a listen, which would be grand. So yeah, so that's great. Thanks so much for talking to us, Ben. And busy schedule. Stay safe. Keep washing your hands. Yes. And we hope to see you soon in this very space.
You too.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
See you, dude. Bye.
So that's it from us here at Nonsuch Studios today. We hope you've enjoyed the insight that we've given to you. But this isn't just the end of what we have to offer as part of NottStopping. Please do check our website, www.wearenonsuch.com, to see all the other activities and opportunities we have for you to get involved in creative activities at this time. And also check out the NottStopping website to see what else is happening across the city but online. And make sure you check out their fundraiser and donate if you are able to. Well, that's it from me. I'm off to socially distance my way back home and hope to see you all very, very soon. Bye-bye.